And what's going on, everyone? We are live. The MMA Minute Show, episode number 1, might I add. The first one of many, though. You know, this started out, you guys might know me from TikTok, and approaching 20,000 followers, doing very well there, but looking to transition into just talking more. I want more long form content. You know, TikTok, you get a minute, maybe 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes in a video. And man, with the UFC, we just know that you need more time. There's so much going on at every single weekend almost, and you just need more time to talk about it. So that's why we're here. We're going to be trying to do this on a weekly basis, previewing all the UFC events. We're going to be making full card picks, predictions, talking about fights. But above all, we're just hanging out. We're having a good time. And that's all that really matters. So this is a space. You guys, if you want to get in the comments, let me know what you want to talk about. If we're going through the fight predictions, let me know your opinions. Because I want this to be interactive. It's just a place to hang out, talk MMA, talk about the UFC. And that's pretty much where we're at. So today we're watching, or I should say we are previewing UFC Vegas 66, headlined by Jared Cannonier, taking on Sean Strickland. Good main event. I don't hate it. The card itself, a solid card to end the year. The last one of 2022. And it's been a crazy year. No doubt about that. So we'll talk about UFC Vegas 66. We'll make our full card picks. And we're going to do a giveaway at the end here. So make sure to stay tuned for the details, for the rules, and all that good stuff later on in the show. And before we get into that, though, I definitely want to talk about UFC 282. And I know, today is Thursday. We're so far removed from that event, but we're still talking about it because UFC 282 was crazy. So we're going to start off talking a little bit about that. If you're here just for the picks, make sure to check out the timestamps in the description. You can just skip right ahead to that. But for those of you that want to talk about it, UFC 282, of course, the talk of the town, the co-main event, Paddy Pimblett taking on Jared Gordon, the main event, Magomed Ankalaev, Jan Blachowicz. That's the talk of the town right now. I don't know which one I want to talk about first. We'll get into the co-main first. That seems to be one of the bigger issues because it involves Paddy Pimblett, one of the UFC's biggest rising stars. And it seems like the majority of people side with Jared Gordon. The majority of people picked Jared Gordon to win that fight. And of course, as we know, it was Paddy Pimblett who came out on top. So, I've been pretty vocal about this. I went live right after the event. I made a video the day after. And I still came to the same conclusion. And I know I'm using that term robbery, and everybody hates using that term robbery. But, man, it just feels like when 99% of the people pick Jared Gordon and the judges go the other way and give it to Paddy Pimblett, there's something going on. There cannot be that big of a disconnect between the people who watch the sport. I'm assuming they know the sport, that they know the judging. Look at the media scorecards. I know I referenced MMA Verdict, general consensus of the MMA community. I referenced The Weasel, also on YouTube. Shout out The Weasel. He picked Jared Gordon, had him winning that fight. He ran a poll. Everyone picked pretty much Jared Gordon overwhelmingly. So when everybody is on that side, and not even one judge scored it for Jared Gordon, all three of them, unanimous decision, 29-28, give it to Paddy Pimblett. Something's wrong, man. Something just feels wrong. That disconnect just doesn't make sense. So, I don't like using the term robbery, and I know it was a close fight. By no means did Jared Gordon absolutely dominate that fight. It just felt like overall, the consensus was Jared Gordon won that fight. And the fact that no judge, all three of them, went the other way, it just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense to me. So obviously that's the talk of the town. Another thing that comes out of this, Paddy Pimblett, a rising star in the UFC. Where does he go from here? Because his stock, even though he won, the stock dropped, man. He was exposed. Jared Gordon, winning the striking exchanges. Jared Gordon being more aggressive, better in the clinch, landing some takedowns. It just feels like in this division at 155, Paddy has no chance. Jared Gordon, I said it before, he's an average to good fighter. He's not a world beater. He's not a can. He's somewhere in the middle there. He has an above 500 record in the UFC, so obviously he is a good talent. But when you're a rising star like Paddy, when you're selling all the tickets and the hype is on you, you got to be better than that. You have to be better than that. And he's a relatively young guy. He's not super green. He had a pretty decent career in Cage Warriors. But now he's like 27, 28. You know, you got a couple years here to really start developing. And I just don't see it, man, because 155 is so stacked. So stacked. And we have a fight coming up, UFC Vegas 66, Arman Tsarukyan, Damir, Ismagulov. Like, you want to talk about 155? Those are the upper echelon guys. They absolutely wipe the floor with Paddy. And you could really just throw in a lot of names that could beat Paddy after watching that fight. So, you know, maybe Paddy continues to develop. We'll see. But I definitely wanted to touch upon that. Another thing, it was Magomed Ankalaev, Jan Blachowicz. So we get back-to-back questionable judging. But I did go back. I watched this fight a second time, and the verdict that I came up with was that it was a 47-47 draw. That's how I scored it. I could very well see Jan Blachowicz 1, 2, and 3, and then you give Ankalaev 4 and 5, and you throw in a 10-8 round for Ankalaev. Therefore, we have a draw. But I could also see Ankalaev winning round 1, 4 and 5. So it's dicey, man. It's very dicey. These judges are inconsistent, but above all else, they are judging based on damage. That's very clear. Control time doesn't really add up. If you don't have ground and pound to go with it, if you don't have sub attempts to go with it, the judges are going to go with damage. And that's what we saw, because Jan Blachowicz was destroying the legs of Ankalaev. And that was the difference maker in the first 3 rounds, in my opinion. And then all of a sudden, Ankalaev snapped out of it, started wrestling, started getting more aggressive with his striking. So Ankalaev goes back in time. He definitely wins that fight. He definitely goes out there more aggressive because he started out way too slow. He gave Jan way too many opportunities, wasn't checking any of those leg kicks, wasn't staying outside of range or getting close enough where he couldn't throw those kicks. So it's unfortunate for both guys, because Dana White moving on super quick at the press conference afterwards. Jamal Hill, Glover Teixeira in January, they're fighting for the belt. Already gives it to them. Ankalaev versus Jan just doesn't even matter. You guys had a draw. Dana White basically said, both you guys suck. I'm not impressed. I'm giving this to 2 other guys who deserve it. So, you know, I'm excited to see that fight. Obviously, Jamal Hill, another rising star. People love this guy. Very dangerous hands, absolutely. But does he handle a guy like Glover Teixeira, who should potentially be the champion in this division, should have beat Yuri Prochazka in their first fight, but somehow dropped it? Poor fight IQ in round 5, loses it. But Glover goes right back in there. I think stylistically, it makes sense for Glover to win this fight. So we very well could be looking at Glover Teixeira as your champ to start 2023. So we'll see how that goes. And then a couple other things I had on here. Darren Till, man, what do you do with this guy? The move to 185, not panning out. It's just not working. This guy cannot wrestle. He does not have a ground game. And that's been the story for a long time. And he goes out and he's working with Khamzat Chimaev, and then you think to yourself, okay, maybe he's figured something out. Maybe he's developing. He's fixing that flaw in his game. No, because Dricus du Plessis, shout out to my TikTok fans, du Plessis, that's the correct way to pronounce it per the South Africans. They corrected me. Dude, he went out there and he grappled, and he had very good success doing it. Now, I thought that he gassed after round 1, and I really thought Darren Till was going to go in there in round 2 and start taking over the fight, and he just never did, man. He never did. Now he loses. The losing streak continues. He has 1 win in like the last 5 years. 185 is not the answer. 170 is not the answer. He can't wrestle. He's 29 years old, will be 30 pretty soon. That's the prime of your life right there. That is the peak of your physical career, man. So I'm done with Darren Till. I took a flyer on him as an underdog. Thought he was going to turn it around in round 2, maybe round 3. It just didn't happen. Hats off to Duplessis. And then a couple other things. Ilia Topuria, that dude is legit. I picked Bryce Mitchell. I thought this was really going to be a 50-50 coin flip type of fight where Bryce Mitchell, super tough. I don't think he had been finished before. And then he just spams takedowns. He is essentially the hillbilly version of Khabib. I said it before. You throw in a V at the end of his name, and that dude's like a minus 500 favorite based on the way that he fights. And Ilia Topuria just picked him apart. That guy is an absolute animal. And he's going places because that was 2 high-level guys at 145. We don't really know which one was better. All of a sudden, Topuria smokes him. And now you look at Topuria as a legitimate contender at 145. The question mark really is, can he continue to cut weight? And 5 rounds, we haven't really seen that from him yet. What does a 5-round cardio look like for Ilia Topuria? Those are the 2 question marks I have. But after that, after watching that fight with Bryce Mitchell, dude, he's a problem. He's legit. And we had a feeling. We knew that he was legit before, but this really puts him over the top. And then, of course, the 17-year-old, the 18-year-old, I don't know how old he is, Rosas. You know, Jay Perrin, man, he is about, I think he's from like a town 20 minutes from where I live. I had interviewed him a couple times. We have a mutual friend. I've been trying to defend this guy. I've been trying to back this guy in the UFC. But you know what? The UFC is not doing him any favors. Mario Batista is his first fight. Arichi Lang on the second fight. Then he gets Rosas, who looks to be like a legitimate UFC talent after that grappling performance. So Jay Perrin never really had a chance. He's been taking tough fights. The short notice UFC debut is tough. Usually they give you someone after that to kind of bring you back down to earth. They never did that with Jay Perrin. They never gave him a chance. And now he's 0-3, so I could see him getting cut. And Rosas gets all the hype in the world. I think he hit a couple performance bonuses on there. That dude's getting paid. He's going to buy the minivan. So that's UFC 282 in a nutshell. Not sure if we had anyone in the comments who wanted to say anything, but you know, I thought it was worth bringing up because that was the last pay-per-view of the year, and it was a super fun card to watch. Very controversial, and we'll see what happens in the next one. But yeah, that was worth talking about. And now we get into UFC Vegas 66. Jared Cannonier versus Sean Strickland. That's our main event. And the card is pretty stacked. I'm not going to lie. It doesn't have the absolute star power that sometimes you want to see in these cards, but the matchmaking, A+ work. Love the matchmaking. As a betting card, if you guys are looking at this card, looking to bet, might be one of the most difficult cards to bet in the entire year. We have a ton of toss-up, 50-50 bets, pick'em fights, and then minus 250 to minus 350 favorites that I really don't feel comfortable in. So that's kind of where we are right now. That's where we're at. UFC Vegas 66. I already did my spiel on UFC 282. So if we want to just get right into the picks, we can do that. Throwing up the graphic here, full card picks. And of course, we're going to throw up our disclaimer here when we're making our picks, guys. You know, can't be held liable. I'm not a guru. I don't claim to be a guru. If you bet the house based on my opinion, that's not on me. That's not on me. I'm just having fun. I'm a fan of the sport. I make my picks. And you guys can choose to do whatever you do, but always do your due diligence, right? You gotta. So we're going to do this starting top to bottom. So we're going to start with the main event here, okay? So as I was saying before, you got Jared Cannonier, you got Sean Strickland, 2 guys at the 185 division who are very high level. You have Jared Cannonier. We know his story. Used to fight all the way up at heavyweight, makes his way down slowly to 185, and this dude has found some real success at 185. His only losses in this division are to Robert Whittaker in Israel Adesanya. And he fought tough against both of those guys. Okay? Absolutely. And then you got Sean Strickland, who was, he was building up his name, had a lot of hype on his name until he ran into Alex Pereira, man. The hardest hitting fighter in the 185-pound division. And I heard someone make a comment. They were like, you know what? That's fine. Sean Strickland gets knocked out by Alex Pereira. That's fine. He's the hardest hitting guy in that division. Newsflash. Jared Cannonier is the second hardest hitter in that division. He packs insane power. And he's a strong guy. He's going to push you up against the cage. He's going to get in your face. He can rack up some control time. And the cardio, for as jacked as this dude is, you go out there and you look at this guy, he's absolutely shredded. Usually those overly jacked guys don't hold the cardio. He does pretty good in a 5-round setting. So he's going to be there all 5 rounds. But really, what I see in this fight, Sean Strickland, very high volume. He landed over 150 strikes in his last 2 wins, 153 against Hermanson, 186 against Uriah Hall. Both of those 5-round fights. So this guy's got output and this guy's got cardio. Another thing that he has is wrestling in his back pocket. But just like Kevin Holland, man, he just chooses not to use it. Kevin Holland the other weekend probably could have beat Wonderboy if he decided to take it to the ground. He had a couple opportunities to do it, but he's got that ego. He's got to protect that masculinity, and Sean does the same exact thing, man. And I just have a feeling that he's going to go out there looking to brawl, and Jared Cannonier is not a guy you want to do that against. So very much could see Strickland sticking and moving, using the jab, keeping Cannonier away for 5 rounds. It is possible that he can do that, but I'm going to be on the side of Jared Cannonier. I think he is going to be aggressive, and I think Sean's chin is going to be there to get hit. And I'm going to take a flyer on Jared Cannonier. Round 2, TKO. Moving on. And this could be fight of the night. Very well could be fight of the night. Arman Tsarukyan taking Damir Ismagulov. And guys, this is an extremely high-level fight at the lightweight division. Tsarukyan, 5'7", 72.5-inch reach, taking on Ismagulov, 5'10", 74-inch reach. And I have been a fan of Arman Tsarukyan for a long time. I've been singing his praise. I've been saying that he's only, 25, 26 years old. He could be the guy to beat Islam Makhachev one day. I really do believe that. That was his UFC debut fight, was Islam Makhachev. Took it on short notice, and that was probably the most Islam has ever been tested. He's your 5-star athlete, man. He is the all-around whole package. Extremely well-rounded. Cardio checks out. Striking is improving. The wrestling is where he shines. If someone takes him down like a Mateusz Gamrot, immediately starts scrambling. Same with Islam Makhachev. You can see that IQ on the mat, and he can put it all together, and he is a scary dude. I really like this guy. I really do. And I would pick him to beat just about everyone. But if I'm being honest, I'm watching the tape on Damir Ismagulov, and this dude checks out as well. Sneaky, flying under the radar. If you're not a hardcore fan, you probably have no idea probably who either of these guys are, especially Damir. But this guy's legit, man. He's 5-0 in the UFC. He's got notable wins. Just beat Guram Kutaladze, Thiago Moises, Joel Alvarez. Those are 3 big names. 3 big names. And what makes this guy so dangerous is that he's a tall, lanky striker, very good defense, very good movement, precise striking, and his takedown defense is very sound, coming in at 90%. His takedown defense, 90%. And that scares me because Arman does his best work when he's able to mix in the wrestling. That kind of opens up his striking. But if he's not able to do that against Damir, who is the bigger guy, who has very good takedown defense, it's going to be a problem, man. Here's where I am. I'm going to pick Arman for the sake of the show. I have to make a pick. I'm going to pick Arman by decision, slightly biased pick because I really do think this guy will be a future champ one day. But the matchup is not great. And when you're giving, right now the odds are -190 Tsarukyan, plus 160, Ismagulov. That's not a great number for Arman because Damir is legit. So if you're betting this fight, I think you take a flyer on Damir, take him by decision. Arman's a super tough guy. I think Damir could win by decision. That's like a plus 250 bet. I am taking Arman by decision as my official pick, but if I'm a betting man, the value, Damir, all day. Okay, next fight, Amir Albazi taking on Alessandro Costa. Now, what we have here is Amir Albazi, a very dominant fighter, has proven himself in the UFC, taking on Costa, who's taking this fight on short notice. It's his UFC debut. We don't really know what to expect from this guy. I believe he was on the Dana White Contender Series, did not really perform well there, did not get a contract from it, and he's taken on a killer in Albazi, who is the minus 440 favorite, Costa the plus 340 underdog. And I'm looking at ways that Costa wins this fight. Supposedly, it's the grappling, it's the BJJ that is his saving grace. He does finish a lot of fights, 3 TKOs, 6 submissions on record. So the ground game seems to be there. But really, go back and look at some of his opponents. 3 of the last 4 fights, not counting his Dana White Contender Series fight, his opponents are 0-1. He's out there on the regional scene fighting and beating cans. I can't go off of that. You know, like, what do I take from that? Nothing. So if you have a guy who's beating cans, then he comes in, gets a legit shot at the Dana White Contender Series, and he doesn't impress in that fight, and he's going against a guy like Amir Albazi, who has a swarming ground game. This guy, 3-0 in the UFC, 2-time round 1 submissions. How am I not going to go with that? That's where my money's going to be. That's where my official pick is going to be. I'm taking Amir Albazi to win, and I'm taking the round 1 submission. That's how I see it. The UFC debut, the short notice, beating the cans, all these things. I just don't have a good leg. There's no leverage on the side of Costa here. Now, the price, not all that bad. We've seen in the UFC, in MMA in general, if you are a big-time favorite, it's not uncommon to see you as like a minus 600, minus 700 favorite. 440 is not bad. My money will be on the inside the distance for Albazi, and we'll see how it goes. Next up, Alex Caceres taking on Juicy J, Julian Erosa. And this, another phenomenal fight. Love the matchmaking here. Alex Caceres, plus 150 underdog, 5'10", that's 73.5-inch reach. You have Juicy J, Julian Erosa, the minus 175 favorite, 74.5-inch reach, 6'1", very good size. Big dude for the featherweight division. I love this fight, man. And both of these guys in their last, 5 or 6 have had a lot of success. You kind of count some of these guys out. You forget these guys are in the division, but they are sneaky, winning a lot. You have Alex Caceres, who I believe has a recent loss, but before that, I think it's like 5 of the last 6 that he's won. Same with Juicy J. This dude keeps winning in the UFC. This guy is on a tear so far. I love to see that. With Alex Caceres, where you're going to get good defensive striker. He's kind of got that weird, unorthodox kung fu style. And it's also the grappling of this guy that kind of makes you think twice. It's like if an other fighter doesn't really have that type of level of BJJ and he's going against Caceres, you got to think twice. He's got 7 submissions on record. But interestingly enough, he's also been submitted himself 7 times. So yes, he can win some exchanges grappling for sure, but he's also been known to maybe overdo it and can be out-grappled if the opponent has that caliber. And another thing with Alex Caceres, the power is not all that there. The BJJ is high level. He's a defensive striker, decent output, but he doesn't have that fight-changing power. And when we go back and we're looking at a lot of these fights that are going to decision, the judges are looking at damage. More than anything, they are looking at damage. Shots that are going to wobble an opponent, that are going to cut him open, that are really going to change the fight, get near the end of the fight. You know what I mean? And that's Juicy J, man. That's Juicy J all day. This guy is crazy. He's 6.26 significant strikes landed per 15 minutes, but he also absorbs roughly the same, 6.3 absorbed. So this guy goes to war. And he's very well-rounded. I got to give it to him. He is a very well-rounded fighter. He throws a very high volume. In his last 3 fights, he's landed over 90 significant strikes in each of those last 3 fights. And he's also been taking the fight to the ground. He's got at least 2 takedowns in each of his last 3 fights as well. So what he's going to bring to the table, high pressure, high volume, good grappling. And it's all of those things together that really make me think that he's going to do the more damage on the feet. If it goes to the ground, he can at least defend himself against Caceres if Caceres is able to get him in a bad spot. And for those reasons, I got to go with Juicy J. I got to go with Julian Erosa. I think he's going to continue winning here. Caceres is a tough out, no doubt about it. But I just like that dominant style of Erosa, getting some good wins in there. Charles Jourdain, Hakeem Dawodu. He's beating some solid talent, man. And I think he keeps the train rolling. Give me Juicy J by decision. Next up, Drew Dober taking on Bobby Green. And I know I mentioned another fight could be fight of the night. Well, this one very well could be too. You get 2 veterans in there. 2 veterans. I don't think either of these guys are really going to contend for a belt. They're both fringe 15 fighters. You got Drew Dober, a -155 favorite, 5'8", 70-inch reach. You got Bobby Green, 5'10", 71-inch reach. He's the +130 underdog. And I've been having a real tough time breaking this fight down and deciding who's going to win it, because we just like forget about Drew Dober. We forget how good this guy is. We really do. Every time you count him out, it seems like he just turns around, proves you wrong, picks up a W. And he's a very durable guy. Drew Dober can take a shot. You saw that in the Terrence McKinney fight. One of the most exciting round ones we've ever seen. And McKinney almost had him finished 3-4 different times. And Dober overcame that and ends up finding the finish. That was insane. So that's one story with him. He is very durable and he can end fights. He packs punches. He packs power in his punches. He's got that power. And he throws at a pretty decent volume as well. So it wouldn't be the craziest thing for him to go in there, land 80 to 90 significant strikes, landing some big shots in there. The wrestling, jury's still kind of out on that. He is that short, stocky wrestling type, but we don't really see him utilize that wrestling as much as he should. And he actually does get taken down quite a bit. So that brings me to Bobby Green, because this guy can brawl. Love Bobby Green. He has made a name for himself. He had himself a big last couple of years. He's been fighting a very high level of competition. You know, he took that short notice fight with Islam Makhachev. Not the best move, but I'm sure he made a lot of money on that. But we've seen this guy go toe-to-toe with some of the division's best. Rafael Fiziev, a fight which he debatably could have won. That was a very close fight. He outlanded Rafael Fiziev. So it's in there. It's in the cards for this guy. He's got the cardio. He throws at a very high level of output. Good speed, good movement. You see this guy hands down, shoulders rolling. He's slick, man. He's very fun to watch. And that's kind of twofold there. When he's doing some of those motions, you know, kind of relying on that roll, that shoulder roll, the hands down approach, you definitely get tagged a couple times. It's hard to do that over 3 rounds and not get hit clean. But usually he's on top of it. Usually he knows what he's doing, and he actually has a good wrestling game as well. He'll mix in a couple takedowns, no problem. Cardio for both of these guys all day. 3 rounds, no problem. Here's my problem though. Here's my issue. This is what I'm looking at. I'm thinking this goes to decision. Both guys super durable. Love the over 2.5. It's like a -165 prop right now. This is what I'm going to see. I think we're going to see Bobby Green do what he does. He'll probably land, say, somewhere between 100 and 120 significant strikes. He'll probably outland Drew Dober. Is he going to mix in the wrestling? I'm not so sure. I think the title fight implications, any sort of contendership there, probably out the door. I think he's just looking to go out there, have a good time. maybe go fight of the night. And that worries me because I think you're going to see that 100 to 120 significant strikes landed for Bobby Green, and Dober's going to be right there with him, but probably between 80 to 95 significant strikes, but he's going to be landing the bigger shots. He has the power here. And if we've seen anything, it's that the judges, again, they want to see the damage. They want to see the bigger shots. If Bobby Green goes in there and lands 2 takedowns, gets 2 minutes of control time, but it's Dober landing the bigger shots, he's going to win those rounds. And that scares me. So I actually, man, I don't like to do this, but I had Bobby Green by decision, but I'm kind of talking myself out of it because of the judging. So give me Drew Dober to win by decision. I love how you can go through some of these cards, pick out some very close fights. Split decision prop pays out very nice, like somewhere between plus 300 to plus 400. I think this could be a split decision. Bobby Green's been there before, many split decisions, and he's been on the wrong side a lot. And I can see that happening again right here. Absolutely. All right, we're moving on. We're moving down here. What do we got? We got Cody Brundage taking on Michal, Oleksiejczuk. Hopefully I said that right. I think I nailed it. And this is a tough one, man. This is a tough one. You got Brundage, pretty decent underdog here. He's plus 230, 6 foot, 72-inch reach. Oleksiejczuk, minus 280, favorite, pretty big favorite, 6 foot, 74-inch reach. This is in the middleweight division. Remember, Oleksiejczuk used to fight up at 205. Didn't really have that success, and now he's coming down to 185. And it looks like this is where he belongs. So this is kind of where I stand on this fight. Okay, Oleksiejczuk, very good kickboxer. Okay, very good hands. He's very aggressive. He will get in your face. You see it against Dustin Jacoby, goes out there, wins round 1. Dustin Jacoby, very good kickboxer. We've seen that. Oleksiejczuk goes in there and is handling guys like OSP for, no, is it OSP? Yeah, I believe it was OSP for a little while. Sam Alvey, he just knocked out. He just goes out there in round 1, gets very aggressive. He has the hands. He has the power to knock you out. It's just the fact that after round 1, if he's unable to do that, he's kind of screwed. He just drops off a cliff. And that's the problem that I'm seeing here. If the cardio is going to be a concern, I don't love that move. I love betting on cardio. It's MMA. Cardio is king. And if anything, because Oleksiejczuk is more of a kickboxer, we've seen him struggle on the ground. A wrestler can beat this guy. He's been submitted, I believe, 2 times in the UFC. One of them, I think, was OSP. The other one, Jimmy Crute. Jimmy Crute, by the way, landed 8 takedowns on this guy. And when you look at Cody Brundage, you know, his UFC career is kind of crazy because he came into the UFC. This guy's supposed to be wrestling first. And we have seen that in some of his fights, but he's also getting out there and finishing guys in round 1. He's coming off of 2 round 1 finishes. 1 over Tresean Gore. I'm not really sure where to rate that, to be honest. And then we also saw him starch Dolce, Lungiambula. We saw him starch Dolce and Gore. Submission against Dolce, knockout against Gore. Vicious strike that he landed, put him out clean. But it's supposed to be the wrestling of this guy. And we saw him against Nick Maximov, who might have been cut recently, not too sure. That guy's a pure grappler. He struggled with that type of guy, so maybe he's not the world beater grappler that we think he is, but he does have the wrestling. And that's something that can beat Oleksiejczuk. That is the thing that can beat him. The only thing is he has to survive past round 1. And the odds here just a little bit too wide for me, man. They're a little bit too wide for me. I think if you're going to play this, either you're going to go round 1 knockout Oleksiejczuk, or you're going to take Brundage, maybe sneaking in a submission in round 2 or round 3. When you see Oleksiejczuk drop off in cardio, that's where Brundage can take over. So because the odds are so wide here, I'm going to take a flyer on Cody Brundage to win this fight. And I think he's going to get it done by submission because we've seen Oleksiejczuk handled by wrestlers, has been submitted before. Cody Brundage can submit him. He's just got to survive round one. He's got to survive round one. It's going to be a brutal play. If you bet on this card, it is going to be a tough round one to watch. Don't look at it. Turn around for 5 minutes. Turn back around. If he's still there, if he's still standing, hammer that in game, that live betting. So give me Brundage, round 2 submission. And that's the main card there. So now we're going to get into the prelims here. Probably a little bit more of some quick picks. So the next fight, this is your prelim headliner. You got Cheyenne Vlismas taking on Cory McKenna. And I'm not going to lie, flip-flopped on this fight quite a bit. Cheyenne Vlismas, minus 190 favorite, 5'3", 63-inch reach. Cory McKenna, plus 160, 5'3", 58.5-inch reach. So you already have right off the bat close to a 5-inch reach advantage for Cheyenne here. And this is going to be the story of Cory McKenna. Can she wrestle? Can she wrestle? We know she can, but will she? Will she implement that game plan over the course of 3 rounds? That's what she should be doing here, because she's taking on Cheyenne Vlismas, who's very good on the feet, has had some struggles in the past against girls who can wrestle. So really, I like to side with these grapplers a lot of the time. But when we're getting kind of a low-level women's MMA fight, that can be tough to back here. I don't really trust Cory McKenna. We have seen her utilize the wrestling. But we also saw against Elise Reed, yeah, she mixed in some of the wrestling, but she also decided to stay on the feet, and she got outstruck, and she lost that fight. And I can very well see Cheyenne Vlismas kind of doing the same thing here, where she's able to at least stuff some of the takedowns, keep the fight standing. High volume thrower. She's landed at least 90 significant strikes in 2 of her fights. So she can definitely get it going on the feet, man. And I wanted to back Cory McKenna because usually lower level women's MMA, backing the underdog is not a bad idea, but I'm not sold with Cory McKenna here. I flip-flopped a little bit, but I am going to stick with Cheyenne Vlismas to win this fight. I think the striking overall wins it because, again, the judging. We need to keep coming back to this fact that the judging is going to be looking at damage. So control time is not going to be all that we need here. So I don't trust Cory McKenna. Give me Cheyenne Vlismas to win by decision. And again, this could be dicey. So throw in a split decision prop. Why not? Next up, Jake Matthews taking on Matthew Semelsberger. Love this fight. Love the matchmaking. Jake Matthews, he's a pretty big favorite. Minus 270, 5'11", 73-inch reach. Then you got Matthew Semelsberger, Semi the Jedi, plus 220, 6'1", 75-inch reach. This guy is huge for 170. The fact that he's able to make weight is ridiculous. And man, this is a tough one to break down as well, because Jake Matthews, we forget this guy's been in the UFC for a very long time. He's at this point, he is very much so a UFC veteran, but he's still young. He has a lot of experience and he's very well-rounded. It just feels like every time he's putting something together, wins 2 in a row, wins 3 in a row, and then all of a sudden he drops that next one and you kind of second guess yourself. And then he goes out there and he beats Andre Fiallo and the hands look amazing. And you're like, okay, Jake Matthews is officially back. It's just hard to back this guy as a near 3-1 favorite, taking on a guy in Matthew Semelsberger who has insane power. I just touched upon how huge he is for this division. He has legitimate knockout power. He can mix in the wrestling if he chooses to do that. We've seen that in a couple of his fights. AJ Fletcher, I believe AJ Fletcher did take him down a couple times, but Semi the Jedi took down AJ Fletcher as well. In his last fight out against Alex Morano, I think he was able to take Alex Morano down in either the second or third round, and you saw the power come into play there. Almost had Morano hurt and almost ended the fight there. He's one of these guys that over the course of 3 rounds, he can end the fight at all times. And that scares me for Jake Matthews, who just hasn't been the most consistent guy. So really my overall take on this is that Jake Matthews should win this fight. He's the better fighter, the more well-rounded guy, the more battle-tested guy. I think he should win this fight. but I'm not betting minus 270 on Jake Matthews. I'm just not doing it against Semi the Jedi, who's an absolute force. I'm not doing it. So my take on this, I'm taking Jake Matthews to win. I'll take him by decision. Semelsberger, super tough, very durable. But the value, the betting value seems to be on Matthew Semelsberger. I think you kind of look into some of that Andre Fiallo, Jake Matthews fight, and there's probably some hype involved in that. Semi the Jedi, has been losing a couple fights recently. Man, I don't know. I'll pick Jake Matthews to win. I'm not feeling super confident. And I love Semi the Jedi, man. He's becoming one of my favorite fighters to watch. Just very entertaining, true finisher in the UFC. But it's Jake Matthews by decision. That's the official pick. Values on Semi the Jedi. Okay. Next up, Julian Marquez, the Cuban Missile Crisis, if that's still his nickname, taking on Deron Winn here. Okay. This is a weird fight, man. This is a weird fight. Deron Winn, mini DC, right? So this guy is boys with DC, is a very accomplished wrestler, but we're not seeing that translate into the UFC. Okay, so Julian Marquez comes into this fight. He's the favorite, minus 170, 6'2", 72-inch reach. Deron Winn is the underdog, plus 145. He's 5'6". He has a 70-inch reach. This is at middleweight. We're talking about a 5'6" middleweight taking on a 6'2" middleweight, okay? And that's been the story for Deron Winn his entire career. He refuses to cut weight. He is a larger man, as you can imagine, being 5'6". In the wrestling pedigree, the hype we had for this guy being mini DC, it just has not translated into the UFC. And that's unfortunate because Julian Marquez does not have good takedown defense. In fact, if you want to beat Julian Marquez, that's how you do it. You take him down. Look at, some of the fights that Julian Marquez has had. 5 takedowns he led up against Maki Pitolo, who's no longer in the UFC. 4 to Darren Stewart, not in the UFC anymore. 4 to Tsarukyan. Is he in the UFC? He probably is, but I could see him getting cut at some point as well. But the point is, you don't have to be a world-class wrestler to take down Julian Marquez. So there's a clear path here. Deron Winn can win this fight if he just wrestles all 3 rounds. The problem is the guy doesn't have cardio. He doesn't have the cardio, and he's undersized. So I'm not very impressed with Deron Winn, and I'm not feeling confident to back this guy who just got horribly finished by Phil Hawes. And I know MMA math doesn't work. Julian Marquez finished Phil Hawes. I think it was the Dana White Contender Series. So it's a weird matchup. And Julian Marquez gets off to a slow start. In the Maki Pitolo fight, 5 takedowns. That was the name of the fight. Wrestling nonstop. Maki Pitolo goes on his way to win that fight. But all of a sudden, Julian Marquez pulls a submission out of thin air in round 3. And that's kind of a common thing for this guy. He will find a way to win. That's what he does. He pulls it out of his ass, somehow finds a way to finish fights. And he's got a lot of hype on his name because he's kind of famous for calling out Miley Cyrus, right? He called out Miley Cyrus on Valentine's Day. She responded. It was a whole thing. He had his moment, It's just tough to back this guy as well, but I'm not backing Deron Winn. I'm not doing it. The way that I see this fight, Deron Winn probably has some success wrestling early on, but eventually he's going to gas out. Julian Marquez is a finisher. He takes over in the later rounds. It could be in round 2. It could be in round 3, but I do think Julian Marquez wins in the later rounds at some point. Could be by submission, could be by TKO. He's done both. He's very well-rounded, dangerous off of his back. So you could see a club and sub type of situation, but I'm going to go with Julian Marquez to win this fight. Round 3 TKO. And that one, weirdly, is probably one of my more safe picks. I don't like this card betting-wise. I really don't. But I just don't like Deron Winn. I like fading him in the spot. Super undersized. Marquez should be able to get the job done. I feel pretty good about it. Next fight. Great fight. Phenomenal matchmaking. Said Nurmagomedov. You've heard that name before. We've said it many times. Taking on Rakhmonov. Okay. This is phenomenal matchmaking. Interestingly enough, right now, Said minus 105. He's your underdog. I believe opening line, that was not the case. Rakhmonov now the minus 115 favorite. Said 5'8", 70-inch reach. Rakhmonov 5'8", 69-inch reach. These guys match up relatively well against each other. And I flip-flopped on this fight too, man. Right off the bat, you see Nurmagomedov, you want to back that name, okay? You want to back that name. But then you look at Rakhmonov and Said, yes, Nurmagomedov, Russian, Dagestani, has some wrestling, has a good ground game in his back pocket, but he's a striker, man. He's got that Magomed Ankalaev strike first mentality, and he's damn good at it. He's a damn good striker, has good wins, but there's a clear path to beating him, and it's going to the ground. It's taking this guy down. Raoni Barcelos beat Said, mixed in the takedowns, decent on the feet, was able to win that fight. We saw against Silva de Andrade, who's an absolute monster. That was a very back and forth fight. But Silva de Andrade was able to take him down, had some success grappling with Said. And look at Rakhmonov, dude. This guy's a pure wrestler. How good is Ronnie Lawrence? Ronnie Lawrence had a lot of hype on his name. He was upwards of minus 400, minus 500 favorites in some of his fights in the UFC. Rakhmonov landed 10 takedowns against this guy. The tape checks out. He's got cardio for days, pressure, chain wrestling. He's going to do it nonstop over the course of 3 rounds. And I don't even think his stand-up game is that bad. It looked pretty decent as well. So, styles make fights, man. I would like to back Said. I think he's a promising talent here, but you're giving me Rakhmonov with a clear path to victory at a good price tag in minus 115. I'm going to take that. And that's my official pick. I do think this goes to decision. I think Said has the grappling, the ground game to survive. But I think Rakhmonov, man, I think he will make use of the ground game. I think he'll get some ground and pound in there, win over the judges. The control time could be overwhelming. So I favor him in this fight. I'll go Rakhmonov by decision. That's the official pick. Next up, we got Rafa Garcia taking on Mahashate. And I'm hoping I said that correctly as well. So Garcia versus Mahashate. Mahashate, man, a lot of hype on this guy. Coming into the UFC, Dana White Contender Series, weathers an early storm, almost gets knocked out. The chin gets checked. He gets wobbled quite a bit. It was like 2 or 3 times he got wobbled, but overall he did survive, and he took over rounds 2 and 3, ends up getting a contract. And then in his first fight in the UFC, he gets a quick round 1 knockout over Steve Garcia. And he's also huge for this division. Mahashate, man. He's the plus 120 underdog, 6 foot, 71-inch reach, huge guy for lightweight. And then you got Rafa Garcia, 5'7", 70-inch reach. He's the minus 140 favorite. So yeah, this guy has some hype. He's knocking dudes out left and right. And I think that's great. But if you really go back and watch that Dana White Contender Series fight, the chin was getting checked a lot. That's a problem. He was getting hit a lot. He was getting bullied against the cage a lot. And I know he took over rounds 2 and 3 because his opponent gassed out quite a bit. But it just feels like Rafa Garcia, man, he has the wrestling pedigree. He has that in his back pocket. He has never been finished. He's durable, solid chin. It feels like he's got a way to win this fight. He's got good takedowns. He's got some good submission work. Mahashate is just a young dude. I think he's only 23 years old. Seems like he just wants to stay standing on the feet. Doesn't have a massive reach advantage. I think it's just 1 inch. Is that what I had here? Yeah, 71 inch versus 70. I don't like Mahashate here. I like Rafa Garcia because he's proven to be durable. He's shown us the chin. The cardio, I don't think is a guarantee here, but it feels like he should be able to put the pressure on early, clean up round 1, clean up round 2, really wear down Maheshate. And I could even see a finish happening because Maheshate takes a lot of damage because he is the more inexperienced guy. Garcia can definitely find the finish here. He's got good submission work. So taking Rafa Garcia, round 3 submission, that's going to be my official pick here. Maheshate, definitely a guy you want to keep an eye on. Like I said, 23 years old. He'll be in the UFC for a long time, hopefully. It just feels like there's a clear path to victory. I don't hate the price tag here, minus 140. I don't think that's necessarily a parlay piece, but if you want to just bet it outright, go for it. Next up, Brian Battle taking on Rinat Fakhretdinov. Okay, sue me. You're not going to get every name right. I butchered Duplessis' name before. Fakhretdinov. Rinat. We're going to call him Rinat. That's his name. He's coming into this fight as the minus 150 favorite over Brian Battle, who I believe won the Ultimate Fighter, right? So he's minus 150, 6 feet, 74-inch reach, taking on Brian Battle, who's 6'1", 77-inch reach. This fight is at welterweight, so it's at 170. We've seen Brian Battle in the past, typically fights up at 185, but he has made the cut down to 170. And one fight at 170 so far. The dude looks good. He's a very well-rounded fighter. He looks solid. He's got submissions. He's got obviously good striking in his last fight out against Takashi Sato. He head kick knocked him out. Very good striking from this guy. The cut looked like it didn't really have any issues for him. So if he's able to make 170, no problem. I think he is a problem. If he's able to make it, no problem. He is a problem. Yeah, that makes sense. It's just so there's a couple things here. He's taking the fight on short notice. I got to imagine that usually favors the other fighter when you're taking this on short notice. You know, how dedicated were you to training? Are you going to be able to cut weight in that amount of time? We'll see at the weigh-ins. But this Rinat, man, takedowns. Now, we only really have the one UFC fight to go off of against Michailidis, who we just saw against Alex Pereira not too long ago, had 4 minutes of control time against the champ Pereira. And Rinat was able to go in there, take this dude down, control him for 13 minutes. Okay? He controlled him for 13 minutes. And it's a UFC caliber guy. Michailidis, not a world beater. Decent level of competition. Before that, you know, he was facing some cans. I'm sure the record is padded. He did beat 2 former UFC fighters recently, both of them no longer with the promotion, but that's still a decent level of competition. Dude, that's just such a hard style to beat. Chain wrestling, nonstop. He's just gonna keep coming forward. 13 minutes of control time is absolutely insane. We've seen Brian Battle. Not with the best takedown defense. He's got a 55% takedown defense, but he is good off of his back. He does have good submissions there. So that will be kind of a live play for him. He is dangerous, but it's just the short notice. I don't love that. We don't know how the weight cut's going to go because he is a big dude cutting from 185 down to 170. I don't hate it. If you guys want to take him as an underdog plus 125, it's not the greatest payout. But give me the 19-1 guy who's going to go out there and just nonstop chain wrestle. Now, if Brian Battle's been working on that takedown defense, he's able to stuff the takedowns for the most part and land the better exchanges on the feet. Again, we go back to that judging criteria. Damage trumps all. He can win this fight. I could absolutely see that. But just for the purposes of the show, making an official pick, it's Rinat by decision. That's the way to do it. I don't think Battle gets finished there because he is a durable guy. And I think on the ground, he's going to be able to hold himself. I can't get off and bet on Battle. I can't do it right now. So give me Rinat by decision. Next up, we got 2 fights left here. So we got David Dvorak taking on Manel Kape. David Dvorak, this is at the flyweight division. So 5'5", 68-inch reach, plus 200 underdog. Taking on Manel Kape, 5'5", 68-inch reach. These guys stack up really good. Same size here, so no one's going to have the reach advantage. Man, this is tough. So this is another one of those fights where I look at Manel Kape as the minus 240 favorite, and just kind of right off the bat, I say that's too wide. That's too much for me. Going against someone in David Dvorak, who is just a very steady, durable, well-rounded fighter. They do have a common opponent in Matheus Nicolau. Both of them fought that fight very close. Nicolau is now showing us that he's a pretty high-level talent. But man, it's just so David Dvorak has finished 16 out of 20 of his fights, but in the UFC, 3 of 4 of his UFC fights have gone to decision. So it seems like he's kind of come back down to earth, mid-volume guy, but he's got good takedown defense. It's a tricky one, man, because Manel Kape is also a very well-rounded guy. He's going to probably be more of the high volume type because he suffered from a low volume, a low output in his first couple fights, and he paid the price for it. And then all of a sudden he turned it around and he looked great in his last 2. So he obviously started his UFC career a little slow, went 0-2 to start. You know, Alexander Pantoja, not a bad loss. And then Matheus Nicolau, split decision, could have went his way. Had he done a little bit more, just a little bit more, he would have won that fight. And then in his next 2, he goes out there and he's starching dudes. There was already a lot of hype on Manel Kape's name coming from Rizin, former Rizin champ. Comes right in. You don't just get Pantoja unless you're a high caliber guy. And the fact that he's coming into this fight on that 2-fight win streak seems like he's really figured something out. He's not going to go out there and land 40 to 50 strikes like he was before. He's going to go out there, hopefully pace himself, not blow the gas tank too early, because that can be a concern if you're not finding the finish. That can be a little bit risky, but I do feel like at the 125 division flyweights, those guys usually can go for days. He's very explosive, very fast, good speed. So similar fight kind of in the Jake Matthews range here. Like Manel Kape is a big favorite. I think he wins the fight. I think he's the better, more explosive fighter, probably does the more damage. So I do have Manel Kape winning by decision. I just don't love that price tag. Is there a world where Kape goes out there, goes super aggressive in round 1, maybe blows the gas tank, and Dvorak takes over round 2 and 3? Definitely possible. This could be a live betting situation. Dvorak at plus 200, not a bad underdog play, but I am going to go with Manel Kape to win by decision. And that takes us to our last fight, guys. This is 14 fights on this card. It's going to be a long night. It's going to be a good night. I love all these matchups. We got Sergey Morozov taking on Journey Newson. Morozov is the minus 280 favorite, 5'6", 67-inch reach. Newson, 5'5", 67.5-inch reach. So he's got a slight reach advantage there. I personally like Morozov. You look at his record and it doesn't really show you the whole picture because this guy is super dangerous. And he's faced a high level of competition, but we're seeing some win-loss switching off here. The Silva de Andrade fight was an absolutely insane fight. He goes out there, looks like he's going to get the early finish. Doesn't. Silva de Andrade survives. Comeback of the year potential there for Silva de Andrade. But he's faced Umar Nurmagomedov. I think last time out it was Julian Paiva, who's a solid top 15 guy, and he beats him. So he definitely belongs in the UFC. He's a pretty high level talent. And really what it is for me is that he can go out there and decide to wrestle. And if he does that, he's very dangerous on the ground. And I think that's how he's going to win that fight. Journey Newson kind of goes in there, throws a little reckless. I think the chin and the durability is a little bit of a concern. We've seen him knocked out against Randy Costa. Ramos hurt him a couple times in that fight. So really the way that I'm seeing this, Morozov will have the wrestling advantage. If he chooses to go in there and wrestle, he'll be aggressive. He'll push the pace. I think he wins this fight. I think for sure the TKO can be there for Morozov. But you know what? I'll go with Morozov to win by decision. It'll be the wrestling all day. And that is 14 fights up and down. Wow, that is going to be a great card. And I can't wait for it, man. I cannot wait for it. Those are my official plays. I'll just go through it real quick, give you the quick picks here. So top to bottom, Cannonier, round 2 TKO. Arman, Tsarukyan by decision. Amir Albazi, round 1 submission. Juicy J, Julian Erosa by decision. Last minute change up here. I originally had Bobby Green winning. I'm switching. Give me Drew Dober to win by decision. Cody Brundage, underdog play here. I think he can potentially win here in the second round by submission. Prelims, Cheyenne Vlismas by decision. Jake Matthews by decision. Julian Marquez, round 3 TKO. Romanov decision. Rafa Garcia, round 3 submission. Renat wins by decision over Brian Battle. Sergey Morozov wins by decision. And Manel Kape by decision. I have a lot of favorites. For all of you who are going to go out there and say, wow, you just took all the favorites. One, there's a couple of coin flip bets on here. There's a couple of pick'ems. And this just feels like a favorite card to me. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to bet a lot of the favorites here. And yeah, I got like 2 or 3 underdogs. But you know what? We've seen it before. It's an underdog year. 2022 seems to be more of the favorites. Sorry if I just misspoke on that. It's a favorite card. It's a favorite card. 2022 seems like it's been more year of the favorites. But what do I know? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. But also, I got my giveaway. So I'm doing my free giveaway. What I'm giving away is a UFC 2022 Panini Select Blaster Box. 6 packs of UFC trading cards, 4 cards in each pack. Do the math, 24 cards. It's like playing the lottery. You might get nothing, but you might hit Islam Makhachev 1 of 1. You might hit that Khamzat Chimaev rookie card. Who knows? And those are worth money. Those are worth hundreds. Some of them worth thousands of dollars. It's a fun prize. All you have to do, subscribe to the channel, and then let me know in the comments who you think wins the main event between Jared Cannonier and Sean Strickland. Let me know who wins and how the methods of victory, decision, submission, TKO, knockout, DQ, all 3 of those are the same. And if you're feeling crazy, throw in a draw. Couple rules. You got to be 18 years or older. You got to live in the US or Canada. 1 entry per person. Only 1 person can win. If I get multiple entries with the same answer, the same person winning, and you get the same method of victory, I will pull at random. So only 1 winner. And that's pretty much it. So make sure to let me know in the comments who wins the main event and how. And unless anyone else has something for me, I am Steve with the MMA Minute. Make sure to check me out on TikTok. We'll be doing weekly YouTube posts, absolutely. And then also check me out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, because I love getting that audio in there too. Sometimes you're not able to watch the YouTube videos, but if you're driving in your car, just need to turn on that audio. I got you on the podcast front. And that's all I got for today, guys. So thank you. It's been a great year, a great 2022, and we'll see you next year. Adios.